Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья.
Good day, dear friends.
Я сегодня хотел бы
Let me inform the nation of Russia,
в котором хотел бы
the nation of RSFSR, the nation of the Soviet Union, and also the rest of the world, about certain acts that are being done by the extremists of the Russian Federation. I'm going to tell you more about these acts now. You will understand why I refer to them like this from my following report. I must say that the world is currently in a system crisis that may escalate into the World War III. This is already being talked about among secret cabinets of high-ranking officials, through the lines of secret services of various organizations, such as the International Monetary Fund. A few days ago, before Kristalina Georgieva speech, before her official statement, a diplomat from the International Monetary One received a call from the MMF. The International Treasury Monetary One is the beneficiary of the right that has acquired all the assets of the White Spiritual Boy Corporative Global, which are the assets of the entire global financial system, its foundation, all gold accounts, all global gold, which is also called sacred gold or treasure Ra, as the initiated financiers call it. There are many of these accounts. The White Spiritual Boy, the Wonder Boy, and many other accounts that make up the whole global financial system, and which are used as collateral accounts for currency issuance in each country. In practice, this is also the global financial system. We received a message from the owner of these gold assets, the White Spiritual Boy Corporation, which was the owner of these assets from the beginning. The White Spiritual Boy representative who handed over these assets to us in a direct successor of the King Solomon lineage. The ordinary people, this information may seem strange, but believe me, to the Vatican and to the other initiated financiers of the world, financial centers, such as the World Bank, Commission 300, as well as the other more or less initiated organizations, this information is very understandable and clear. The M1 International Treasury received these assets to lead the world out of the global financial and system crisis, to avert a third world war, to kick-start a creative development of humanity, and of course, to authorize all these assets in all world financial institutions, control bodies, and all international organizations of the world financial system. The World Bank, the International Treasury Monetary Fund, Federal Reserve System, the US Treasury, the UN International Court of Justice, the BIS Bank, the UN General Secretariat, and the UN General Secretary, the UN secret committees, and the financial councils. Of course, the Vatican is also among them. The act of transferring all these world assets to M1 was authorized under international law prior to the appearance of the Kristalina Georgieva, our diplomat, the M1 Global Treasury diplomat, was telephonically informed by MMF, a secret service, that M1 needs to get involved in this process due to the catastrophic situation caused by crisis and pandemic. Too many countries in the world have turned to the MMF, and their resources are just not enough to help all these countries to stabilize their economies, which could lead to a third world war. Based on this phone call from the MMF, the International Treasury Monetary One which is accredited by the UN in the General Secretariat and 26 UN commissions, issued the resolution number 1, based on the rights of the owner of the global financial system, based on the rights of the owner of the Brandenburg Convention that was based on the assets of the White Spiritual Boy Corporated Global, based on the rights and tasks put before us, and with the aim of stabilizing the world and the world economy, with the aim of transitioning to gold standard, and with the aim of supporting the implementing of Basel III. M1 resolution has been sent to all international organizations working with the financial sphere and regulating it at the international level. The resolution has been sent to leaders of all countries, central banks, and so on. It is of course understandable that the forces that want to destroy the world, the extremist and terrorist forces that want to resist peace and who benefit from chaos and destruction, who have committed many crimes and sins, have also committed sins in the financial system, which has been recently heavily politicized, even though it is forbidden, have begun to illegally manipulate foreign accounts and foreign assets in a system banks such as Deutsche Bank and others. Of course, there are also forces that prevent these criminals from doing evil. Transition to the gold standard puts everything in place, bursts these soaps, bubbles inflated by the extremists and criminals, and returns people a hard currency secured by the gold that is a little affected by inflationary process, thus protecting human labor and human energy invested in the capital that belongs to the people.
Тем самым сохраняется людской труд и людские затраты, значит, в их капитале, который принадлежит им.
On the basis of this process, I received several phone calls from several cabinets of the private company, Russian Federation, who were informed by the MMF staff about the situation in our country, the Soviet Union and RSFSR, and the occupying corporation of the Russian Federation, which governs the territory of the Soviet Union. The problem is that the resolution states 3 reserve currencies, which have been enacted in the world by the M1. These are the US dollar, until the Nixon period when it was secured by gold, the gold EQ of the Sovereign Order of Hospitaliers. I am also the director of the Central Bank of the Order of Hospitaliers, and the golden Soviet ruble. Why have these 3 reserve currencies been chosen? Because they are physically, measurably and stably tied to the Basel III world currency and to the bank gold, the code of which is XAU. On this basis, these 3 currencies are enacted as 3 reserve currencies for all countries in the world in order to secure the countries' gold balance sheets and thus ensuring the issuance of their national currencies. Currencies must be stable against gold because markets have collapsed, the whole system has collapsed. All central bank indicators are artificial. It is not clear what exchange rate they are actually holding against the euro, against the dollar, and the international markets do not exist. This actually creates a situation where there is no money. There are only some currencies that have ceased to be real currencies and have lost their value. The gold standard have been enacted and the whole system has practically moved to the gold standard. So as Kristalina Georgieva said, the world's economy has stalled and artificial intelligence is blocking all international transactions that are built on this fiat basis. In connection with what I've told you, let me emphasize that it is necessary under law to move to the gold standard, to these three reserve currencies. The combination of the three currencies is very stable in space, and as we know, 3 points form a surface. And on this basis of these three values, it is possible to form securities for all local currencies around the world. I would like to emphasize that M1 is ready to help all countries, and that the amount of gold which is in the M1 possession and in the line of cons, and as well as with laws, is sufficient to bring the whole world out of the financial crisis. We are ready to help everyone, right down to each individual, every person, every citizen of any country. For us, humanity is one whole, and we are not building any borders out of these terms. We call upon all leaders of the countries to realize their responsibility in this extraordinary moment the world is in. This is not an ordinary moment, and therefore it is necessary to make decisions. It is necessary to realize the responsibility that lies upon you, upon your families and your children, because you are the ones who are holding the responsible posts, and it does not matter who directs you and what threats you pull. You will be held responsible, and it is also you who have to make a decision. Therefore, we announce once again that we are ready to provide gold resources, like the XAU currency, nominated in any world currency. Under Basel III, we don't even have to ask for permission from any authorities, such as from the Fed or for dollars or the Hospitaller Council, although I am the chief financier of the council, because by owning the XAU, the law allows us to nominate any world currency. We can nominate for all of you treasury bills that cannot be counterfeited due to special production method and that are secured by gold under all rights and laws stably secured. We can provide you all with a treasury connection and verification system with the origin of the issued funds, the history of these gold origins, where it is located and so on. All of this can be provided to those countries and financial institutions which will accept help either through the MMF or directly from the M1 Treasury. I repeat that the Brandenburg Convention is based on our assets, the assets that previously belonged to the white spiritual boy now, belong to the M1. The International Monetary Fund was established under the Brandenburg Convention and also the BIS Bank, or today's SWIFT system. Being practically the owners of the Brandenburg Convention, the MMF must of course understand the role of M1, understanding what position the M1 stands towards the MMF, and also understand on whose platform this monetary fund works together with the BIS Bank and all SWIFT systems. Our accounts, the M1 accounts, are located in the World Bank, the Vatican Bank, a number of central banks and all the largest banks in the world. Over 1,000 banks hold our open accounts where gold assets are located. We have a large number of accounts, 1,000 accounts filled with these assets. I also want to tell you that Rothschilds, Morgans, Baruchs, the entire Federal Reserve System have never been the owners of the Libor account. The Libor account always belonged to the white spiritual boy corporated global, and all these financiers you have considered to be the owners had only managed the platform but never owned it. They do not have the ownership right to what they declare. To this date, M1 is the owner of all this money, but this does not mean that M1 usurps all power on earth. It means that M1 clearly and comprehensively declares that it lives, works, and has created this system for the whole nation, for the people, and not for a few usurpers. The only con on the basis of which the M1 works today, the M1 system, which is also the world financial system, is the con of creation. Everything that will not be in accordance with this con, believe me, all accounts will be blocked, and no IT worker, no worker of any level of access will be able to do anything with the system, because the whole system is controlled by the artificial intelligence. Those who are initiated will understand me. Today, the artificial intelligence fulfills this task and will continue to do so. Various usurpers and war criminals can do nothing to the artificial intelligence. You cannot bind it, you cannot imprison it, you cannot do anything. If we return to our peacekeeping mission, which we have been asked to carry out, the mission of ending the global economic crisis and averting World War III, rebuilding the economies, modernizing the world financial system, and leading humanity onto a path of creation. This mission is positive and global. All UN peace initiatives and projects fall into this category because all those in line with this vector, the anti-poverty programs that have helped us, we will support all the positive and creative initiatives of the UN and the leaders and organizers of such programs. At the same time, to this day, we have a perfect picture of the situation within Russian Federation, and I can tell you that the documents for Kristalina Georgieva, Executive Director of the World Bank 300 and Chair of the International Monetary Fund, have not reached her, but have been captured by the Hasidic group from inside of the International Treasury, from inside of the International Monetary Fund, which immediately sent these documents to Russia, to the foreign company of the Russian Federation operating in the territory of our country. The diplomats of this company, after receiving these documents from the MMF, were a little shocked and are currently preparing their ignorant answers.
Готовят свои же такие же невежественные ответы. То есть
the problem is that the Soviet gold ruble is one of the world's reserve currencies, and this is very disturbing for some usurpers who are ignoring and bending the laws and abusing the nation in our country. They are performing a genocide in our country. On this basis, they are prepared. On this basis, they prepared their answers. Instead of supporting the group that emerged in our light Soviet Union and created the M1, they would rather spread biased information, to put it mildly, and try to block all these activities. This extremist group does not need peace. There is no need for money for the nation. They prefer to keep the nation hungry. They do not even have enough to pay people this imaginary resurgence support payment that was promised during COVID pandemic while carrying out a legal genocide on the nation. They do not need anything at all. I can confirm this to you from the position of the UN specialist and consultant. I have studied this issue very deeply. I have had access to secret materials regarding legal subjectivity and whether the Russian Federation even has it at all. I can tell you in all conscience that the Russian Federation is a colonizer that occupied Moscow in 1993, where tanks were fired there. This is also recorded and acknowledged by several African kings at the behest of traitors from the first KGB division of the USSR, who prepared, appointed and commanded these kings. At present, all regions have entered the colonial model under Moscow, because Moscow was the center of control in the Soviet Union and was put into colonial dependence on the Russian Federation, which was first registered in America and communicated with the financial system American code, and later re-registered in London. Regions were also colonized and put into dependence, by which they were expanded their influence and not entirely legal acts on the territories of RSFSR. Later, Moscow, the people who occupied our country, responded to the MMF, and the same extremists within the MMF, to those who were blocking the information from their superior that there was no need to do anything like that, no gold Soviet ruble, and so on. Let me officially inform you that the government of the Soviet Union has currently been restored. Until recently, the Soviet Union was led and registered in the United Nations as a state that still exists, a state that has never been liquidated, but which does not have its own government, which dissolved its government. This country voluntarily divided its territory into specific zones to which foreign management companies moved in. They took a function of presidents on the basis of their own rules, the function of diplomats, function. They took on the functions, but that does not mean that they are real diplomats, real presidents, and so on. They took control, service, and administration of the territory. Citizens of the Russian Federation in principle do not exist. From international law point of view, they cannot exist for two main reasons. You can't be a citizen of a company, you can be a commodity, a debtor, a staff, a client, but you can't be a citizen of a company. If a person, unaware of the rules and laws, takes on such a role, calling himself or herself a citizen of the company, then of course it raises the question of his/her mental state. It is necessary to study the documents and find out what kind of creation this Russian Federation is, and whether it is possible to have a company's citizenship in accordance with the international law. Of course not. Secondly, we don't take the first point into account, we will get to corporate instructions, which they call the laws of the Russian Federation. It is clearly written there that in order to become a citizen of the Russian Federation, one must pass the procedure for obtaining citizenship, mental capacity assessment. Everyone must undergo this procedure. There is no such a possibility that the Soviet citizen automatically becomes a citizen of the Russian Federation, that by the right of birth one automatically becomes a citizen. There is no such a thing in there. You need to go through this procedure. Intelligent people understand that passing this procedure is tantamount to passing a test for a mental disorder, mental irresponsibility confirmed in writing to remain in colonial slavery. Based on stated above, I want to inform you that when you are about to receive a passport, or you have already received a passport, you have always signed a document presented to you by someone in a uniform that resembles a police officer or a migration officer, because you are a migrant. Or it is the MVD passport department. We signed this document without noticing a written point stating that exact law and the paragraph saying that we sign our own mental irresponsibility, the securing a guardian, a foreign company that has taken power in our country, the Russian Federation. This company, Russian Federation, is the largest company in the world, I'm telling you. As an international expert, it is the largest money laundering machine in the world. It steals all the funds and capital capital saved by our grandfathers and ancestors, the Soviet Union. Stalin put piles of gold in all sorts of trusts so that communism can be built here, so that the whole world economy would work for the citizens of the Soviet Union, so that sovereign citizens of the Soviet Union would live well, receive income from the trusts and work as they wished. All these trusts still work and all the proceeds work as they wished. All these trusts still work and all the proceeds from the pension fund, from the trusts, as well as reserve trusts, were stolen by the criminals who also created this company, the extremist society of the Russian Federation. These criminals are the 7 bankers who manage the financial system, who are still our managers, but this issue is already being addressed. These are the clans, not surnames, but clans using nicknames of the Morgans, Rothschilds, Baruchs, Rockefellers, Oppenheimers, and so on. It is 7 bankers who formed the company called Russian Federation, who corrupted and morally disbanded the top of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the top representatives of the KGB, and so on.
Представителей Комитета государственной безопасности и так далее, то есть организовали глобальное предательство.
They organized a global betrayal, starting with the Washington Treaty, which talks about the transfer, sale, illegal sale. They don't need the law, they do everything illegally.
Ничего не нужно, они все делают незаконно.
On this basis, the non-existing president was appointed because in the laws and norms of the Soviet Union, the term president does not exist.
Советского Союза не предусмотрена должность президента.
And all changes in the constitution of our great country must first go through the highest Soviet, through the Soviet of National Deputies and so on. Of course, this not happen. So a pile of Jewish Freemasons who represented the interests of this savage and human capitalism that occupied our socialist country carried out this betrayal. They organized a state council, created the position of a president, to which they appointed their Judut Gorbachev Mikhail Sergeyevich. On the basis of this scenario, Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev, together with Yeltsin, truthfully accomplished this betrayal, leading the nation of the Soviet Union to death end of development as a country and organizing a coup and dissolving the state authorities. The decision must be made by the nation. The 1991 nation referendum clearly states that although all sorts of dirty political instruments were used,
значит, мошеннические политтехнологии, там, измененной форме, неизмененной форме, народ проголосовал
the nation voted for the Soviet Union,
Советского Союза. И этот референдум,
for the wholeness of the Soviet Union. And this decision, this expression of the will of a Soviet nation was not heard. This gang, which occupied our country, committed an international crime by carrying out the coup d'etat. What can be done? Such things have happened throughout history. Sovereignty is an attribute that needs to be fought out, restored, and so on. These processes are happening all the time. Only the methods of warfare were changed at the time. And everything these 7 bankers and everything these 7 bankers did could not be called anything else than international terrorism and international extremism. So these are international crimes. With their legal and bloody acts, they attacked our country and paralyzed its authorities. Nevertheless, on the international level and within the United Nations, the Soviet Union is still considered as a sovereign subject of international law. The company, Russian Federation, is also an entity, however, an entity that is declared as an occupier of the city of Moscow. which territory they have occupied and declared as their own territory. Several Africans signed their confessions admitting that it was such. Therefore, there was a need for casualties and shooting in 1993 for the cannons, tanks and organization of all that turmoil. Based on these facts, today we can see that everything was a lie. The nation must know that they showed them one image on television. Imagine of freedom, transition to democracy and so on. But in reality it was not occupation, and the documents registered with the UN confirmed this. Therefore, this company, in accordance with all experts' evaluations of the original documents, is treated as extremist. This company does not recognize the right written by our fathers and grandfathers who defended peace on earth in World War II, who affirmed equality of nations, who created the UN Security Council and much more. Only after the departure of Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin did the Jewish Freemasonry structures, which are extremist and work against humanity, penetrate into the highest bodies of the Soviet Union and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. US Hasidic structures infiltrated the UN, and the work of the UN began to be influenced by them. I would like to explain to people that it is not good to demonize Americans, and there is no need to demonize Europeans, as being suggested on TV by the same extremist journalists and the same extremist crooks who are spreading and showing us lies instead of truth. It is just necessary to understand that there are groups in all countries and that these groups are interconnected. There are secret societies, groups whose activity is not based on normal values or the light divine basis, but on extremism, terrorism and destruction. These people are working against humanity. Their goal is to make wars around the world, to reduce the population and destroy humanity on Earth. That is what they've been doing to this day. You all know that Trump eventually raised the flag of light and began conducting special international counterterrorism operations around the world. He began arresting all those who keep destroying our family, our common kin, our children, arresting human traffickers and so on. He has publicly said that human trafficking is currently gaining momentum, never seen before in human history.
Торговля людьми на сегодняшний день набрала такие обороты, которых не было в истории человечества. То есть вот в это время. Поэтому я хочу вам сказать, что
we don't live in a cultural era. We are just a crazy civilization that is currently falling apart.
Значит, также хочу людям сказать, что демократия не
Democracy is not the government of a nation.
Так скажем,
democracy is an anti-human system pushed through by those financiers, through the law of the sea, through the Federal Reserve and so on. Democracy comes from the Greek word demos, which does not mean a nation, but only part of it, a small part, townspeople, rich people, feudal lords. In the Greek language there is also a word ochlos, which denotes a nation, and the government of a nation is then an ochlocracy. There should be one uniform term for the world nation, or like in the English language nation, so then we would have a nationalcracy or something similar. All over the world, in all norms of international law, it is written that based on the results of World War II and the votes of the representatives of all nations, the power of the nations is confirmed. The government belongs to the nation, and the nation itself chooses whether to live in a monarchy or have a president or an appointed resident, or will have some parliamentary government or other model of society that it chooses. So the rule of nation is the world's highest throne for governing society, and this throne of control is now being usurped and taken away from the nation. It is usurped right by these international criminals that Trump white hats, and other people are trying to fight against. So, what do we see and observe in our country? We can see that there has been created a movement of light that works for the nation, that we work for the nation, and the money and the assets handed over to us by the white spiritual boy corporation Global. Just so you understand, they did not only hand over the assets to us, they also appointed myself, Alexander Nikolaevich Paramonov, the main treasurer of the M1 International Treasury, to the position of the president of the white spiritual boy corporation Global and also its chief executive, so that we can avoid unnecessary questions from various critics who oppose the processes of light on earth. It means that I am authorized to act on behalf of both of these structures, the white spiritual boy corporation Global, which has transferred all its assets to M1, and also on behalf of the International Treasury Monetary One, so that no more questions arise about this. I repeat once again that we work for the nation, we work for the countries, our colonies creation, our task, our goals, our creative development and prosperity for the nation, love and gentle development. Our goals are creative development and prosperity of the nation, love and gentle treatment of our nature, observance of the cons of the universe, which say we should love, support and protect everything living on earth, and to protect everything from its destruction. Look what these civilized capitalists have done on earth. They are destroying our common home, they are destroying our common planet, they are shamelessly destroying it. What is communism or socialism? Ism is an ancient abbreviation of the term istina, the truth or the principle of the terrestrial world. Ism, istina zemного мира, is in ancient times there was one language and everyone understood ism as the principle of the terrestrial world. This world resonates genetically in us. So what do we place on top of this principle of the terrestrial world? These comrades who are committing genocide here have placed the capital on the throne on this principle of the terrestrial world. The Soviet Union placed the people on the throne of the principle of the terrestrial world. Therefore, socialism is where men, family, children, grandfathers, grandmothers, our kin sit on the throne of the principle of the terrestrial world. The capitalists are the enemies of the kin, the enemies of humanity. They don't care how they make their capital, and they use the capital to create lawlessness, using it against the cons of universe, against natural law, against humanity, just to satisfy their egos and pursue their greedy, dark and black plans. In conclusion, I would like to inform this extremist society, the company Russian Federation, also extremists who take diversionary actions against the director of the International Monetary Fund, carry out diversionary actions against all the humanity. I want to clarify the following. You have a very weak specialist who can't work with documents. You have a very weak intelligence. Everything I say here has already happened. Everything is already authorized in the global financial system. Everything happened a long time ago. You are now trying to do some stupid things again, which will not only bring you to shame, but will also lead you to accusations by the International Counter-Terrorism Platform. To make you understand, we have signed various treaties with international institutions that deal with counter-terrorism and counter-extremism activities, with the institutions that actively fight terrorism and extremism. We ourselves are also dealing, and we have to be dealing with, the control of the financial system as follows from our international obligations. We are involved in a fight against money laundering, terrorism, extremism, corruption and genocide. Therefore, before before some comrades from various cabinets of the competent Russian Federation start making statements, it would be useful for them to study what is being said here and who is who, because you forgot about these things a bit and you have made a lot of serious mistakes to this date. I advise you not to make such mistakes in the future, because there are certain secret orders in certain countries already in place that support the International Treasury Monetary One. They fully support it in a legal aspect as well as in the aspect of physical security, with right to execute special international counter-terrorism and counter-terrorism operations. So be careful, because you may find yourself at Guantanamo, if they even take you there at all. Therefore, please respect the letter of law, respect the norms of international law, respect man and society, love your master who is still feeding your parasites, and respect the nation. Because the nation is the highest value on earth, and you have already forgotten about it. Therefore, repent before it is too late. Wake up and stop engaging in illegal activities. All your accounts, and I'm aware of it, all your accounts will be blocked. They are already being blocked. You will no longer be able to make any manipulations with the global financial system. You will no longer be able to make any moves for your illegal enrichment, because the control of the financial system was already created. From now on, there will be a lot of interesting things that will start happening on your end. Everywhere, from your satellites up to your systems that you have turned against humanity. These systems will start breaking down. This is the will of the higher razum. My job is just to pass this information on to you and warn you to think about whether you want to save yourself, at least in some form of being and in some place. Because what you are doing is inadmissible in any form in terms of common sense, and also in terms of higher razum. Thank you.